Otherwise, when you're trying to self-promote and build your own personal brand, I think the biggest part is getting in front of the camera like I'm doing right now, and even walking around surrounded by people that they stop and they kind of look, oh, what are you doing? Who are you talking to? The concept of privacy on what you're doing on your own is not something that is quite big. Most people will even have like full-fledged open speaker conversations on their phone, and you can hear the whole conversation. Doesn't matter what they're talking about. Sometimes like there's yelling, and sometimes they talk about very private stuff. It doesn't matter. This is I don't know. It's not something I fully understand. I like to have my own little world when I'm doing stuff, but it's not the same for everybody. I'm still trying to figure out what are the best topics to put forward in the next couple of posts. One of the things I'm working on is to get my podcast, Toasting Failure, off the ground, which I'm going to release an episode next week. It's very timely because last couple of months have been incredibly difficult, and I've recently come to learn that I'm not the only one going through these difficulties. There's a lot of other small business owners that are concerned because business has not been as good. And one of the things I do is that I cater to Chinese companies that are going abroad. And while most people are not affected by what's going on between China and US, the fact is the new tariffs did make a lot of Chinese companies track back from actually sending products to the US, just because the amount of hurdles that comes with it became a bit too much for them to be able to turn a profit margin that makes sense. So when things are not working out as an entrepreneur, when you're trying to get any kind of business off the floor, you got to pivot. And I've been pivoting a lot. Trying different things, meeting up with different people, reaching out for different needs. But it's a long process because, usually when you are faced with things that are not working out, it drains a lot of your motivation, and it makes it hard for you to be social enough to even go out there and start doing more business networking and contacting more people, because you don't have the energy for it, or the social energy for it, up to the point that you're like, oh, you kind of get stuck a little bit. Hence the reason you got to pivot and you got to try something a little bit different. So what have I been trying to do a little bit different in general? So originally I was pushing a lot for Chinese companies going abroad. And I was also starting to push for North American brands, marketing to North American brands. But the biggest challenge is that while I'm based here in China, it's very hard to do that. 12-hour difference is a massive hurdle, and it's hard to do. So that's why I started appealing more to local businesses, for local businesses. And I'm sort of slowly becoming, I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I'm trying to become more of an expert on Chinese social media platforms like Xiaohongshu and Douyin and WeChat, to give what the local brands and local businesses actually need, which is boots on the ground with lots of visibility from people, while at the same time giving them an extra leeway to Western social media brands as well. Because, for example, what most people probably don't know is that Instagram is used a lot by Chinese people, despite what anybody thinks. There's a lot of users on Instagram and sharing their livelihood and their life in China. And they're not foreigners, they're actually Chinese people. They just like the platform, and they're basically, if they're publishing on Xiaohongshu, why not publish on Instagram as well? But catering to small businesses also means that you need to kind of get a little bit of a pay cut, because they don't necessarily have a bigger budget like big companies and all, which is kind of sad, because at the same time they need this kind of exposition, they need this kind of exposure online, and they don't necessarily have the resources, maybe the revenue, to be able to pull it off in the first place. So I do want to try to approach this as a mindset to be helpful for the local community that even I live in. But it's pretty hard because, you know, there's a lack of support per se. And even for myself, when I'm doing personal branding, it's very hard because you're split between the work you're doing to actually generate income, and then you're split between the extra work you want to do in order to, you know, advertise your own self. And that's very hard. So how am I dealing with this? Well, recently I'm in the process of trying to hire some interns. So how am I doing this? Well, recently I'm in the process of hiring some interns. The objective is to get 2 interns to help deal with some of the customer work once I build a plan and the strategy for them. And also once I, you know, set up like the overall brand tones for the type of content and, you know, writing style, imagery, and that kind of stuff, for them to be able to take over, and then I can just like supervise their work while at the same time I put more effort into building my own company's brand per se. Because when you're the owner, you're the best person to actually know where you're going, despite the fact that right now I had to pretty much change everything in the way I'm approaching the business, the way I'm offering stuff. Like Google advertising is not super popular right now at the moment. Well, I mean, like the economic situation worldwide is a testimonial to the fact that most big companies have been cutting down on costs, and most of those costs usually go through cutting on marketing side. But yeah, let's see how this goes. I'll keep posting on a regular basis. Maybe tomorrow I'll try a new coffee place to work from. Thankfully, the weather has become a lot nicer and it's not as hot as it used to be. So I'll see you tomorrow.